It's time for Common Man. Common man, charge the housewives like no one can. What'd you shoot? Where'd we play? Non-stop nonsense on deck today. Tune in. It's time for Common Man.
Okay, calm down.
Why should anybody aspire to be a common man, an average man? Do you realize what it means to be average? That means you're the best of the lousiest, and the lousiest of the best. Now, if we demand more and more for producing less and less, while the have-not nations encourage and inspire and indeed require hard work and maximum effort, if we deify the common men while they encourage and reward the uncommon ones, well, the end result of such a lopsided race as that is too obvious to require elaboration.
I mean, it's like, hello?
You know, sometimes when you practice, you'll set up chairs. You know, when you run through chairs just to show zones and stuff. The Viking defense looks like it's chairs.
We don't go there. Next question.
All the defensive backs covering are just atrocious today for the Minnesota Vikings.
We've never, made excuses or alibis, and we're damn sure not crybabies.
Now what do you think? What do you think of that? He's a rube.
This is not Detroit, man. This is the Super Bowl.
You're breaking up, Bob.
You're breaking up.
I'm going to say something controversial.
That's interesting.
Right. Speculation. Yeah, but disease.
I'm unlimited. Mr. Unlimited.
Tampa Bay.
Look what?
I think we have a very good mix right now. I mean, the morning show does well, comparatively speaking, especially given what it has to go against. Dubers and I have done well, knock on wood, for 4 years. Common and Hartman have done okay, and Barrero is, in my estimation, the primetime player on our station. And cultivating a couple of kids in Sludge and Lake, and we have the Vikings and maybe some things down the road. So I think we're strong right now.
He's the clown from Brown. He's the fourth in the North. This is the Common Man, Dan Cole.
I'm going to call this first segment the development of a new bit, Tenneby. I've been accused by a coworker, still not sure who it was, of never creating anything new in the past 20 years. So here's your new my new creation. We had Paul's intercepted emails, and we tried to find something for texting, and I finally came up with it. PA's texted turnovers. Like it? Texting turnovers.
Sure, yeah.
Does that
works.
And I want to start with that. Now, I still have not had Diego. I just thought of it now. It just hit me as I was listening to the fanfare for the Common Man. And John Madden, the late John Madden's description of the Vikings defense are like chairs. Because sometimes you use chairs when you're practicing defenses and you're working through zones. The Vikings defense looked like chairs that game. And so I thought about the bit. This is PA's texted turnovers. And I have several that I want to get to because I do find them, they raise some interesting issues. Number one would be, hold on, because this is actually my favorite of all of them. Here we go. We'll start with this one, and there are a number of them I want to get to too. This one says, "Hey, you guys are talking coaching right now. Got a quick question for you. Do you think it's imperative for Detroit to win a big game this year? They're going to potentially lose their offensive and defensive coordinators. Do you think that the Lions will be back to their losing ways? Or do you think Danny Campbell will have some tree cred to him. Thanks, signed Lee. I think people while I believe offensive and defensive coordinators are important, I think it gets to be a bit overrated, right? We've had offensive and defensive coordinators leave teams before, that very successful teams, and those teams continue with their winning ways. If that's what it comes down to, then yeah, I guess they do need to win right away. Oh. That would be like, for instance, do you think if B-Flow leaves?
Yeah, I was going to say, you could say the same thing for us.
Do you think if B-Flow leaves, so do you think the Vikings have to win now? And if B-Flow does leave Tennessee, it will be, you know how you have when you're looking at world history, it's AD and BC, right? In 2020 AD or in 2020 BC, right? You've heard that before, right? Well, we would have Vikings. It would be, hold on. I had it all figured out here. Oh, wrong one. We're not doing Peek at the Purple yet. It would be, when you're talking about the Vikings, you'd be talking about before and after. Before and after. So when you're talking about, I would have to look, if you had brought up something about the Vikings, I would say, are you talking about before or after? Because it would be before or after. Okay, show is really grinding to a halt here early. That wasn't as funny as I thought. I'll send that back to rewrite and have them punch it up. More from the turnovers from PA. This one says PA's texted turnovers. Vikings O-line was pushed back by the Lions D-line consistently. Did Arnold need to alter the ball flight to throw over raised hands and therefore overthrow several balls? Vikings O-line manhandled the Packers D-line last Sunday, which Darnold benefited. Tennessee, do you think outstretched Lions defensive player hands made Sam Darnold throw the ball higher than he wanted to?
Well, he did throw high basically on every single pass he threw, so I guess you can't argue it. I'd like to think that Detroit wasn't the first defense in the history of the NFL to go, hey, maybe we should try to block these passes and get our arms up.
Yeah, I think sometimes people are looking for, what do we say? Looking for too many. They're looking for an easy answer, something that can be cured very quickly.
Yes.
Right? That's, hey, just with a drop of a hat, the snap of the fingers.
They don't want the complicated answer.
Right. We'll get back to the days of that are, I was going to say long gone days that weren't that far away. This one says, they must have had the coach on. They said, ask the coach if he thinks they will change the playoff rules for next year so somebody with 14 wins is not a wild card, and somebody with a record of Tampa Bay in the playoffs to do it more like hockey, baseball, and basketball. Do you think this Viking fan would have sent the same thing if the Vikings were hosting 14-2 Tampa Bay, or do you think he'd like it from winning? Like if the Vikings
guessing they wouldn't have complained about
that's
it.
That's it. Well,
yeah.
That's the thing. It's like this is what they call. Is the word anomaly? Can you IHOP the word anomaly? ANAMALY and anomaly. I'm not sure of the spelling. I sometimes I don't know my A's from my O's. Anomaly. And what does that say?
A deviation from the common rule, type, arrangement, or form?
Yeah, this is an anomaly, right? Because, I don't know how often it happens, but there are times where a wild card, you're just in a tough division. It's like you just got to roll with it, It's like you win Sunday's game and you don't have to worry about it. That's the other thing. It's like people talk about, well, this penalty gives this missed call there at the back. Don't let missed calls or bad calls influence the outcome of the game. Now, sometimes there can be an argument for that, right? Like, for instance, we brought it up yesterday. Saints-Rams. Well, that one penalty did change the outcome of the game and prevented one team from getting to the big game. But you like the 14-3 record, and I get it. It seems unfair, and I can even listen to the argument that you do change that you basically don't, because you can still have your divisions and winning the division, and then, but is winning the division then even become that important anymore, right? other than you get an automatic bid, right? If you win your division, you're in regardless. It's not like if you won the division at 9-8 and there were 7 other teams with better records. Well, you won your division, but you're out because you had less wins. You had a worse record than 7 other. It doesn't work that way. The division winner always gets one. I could listen, I guess, to reseeding, but I don't mind the way it is now. Would you like it to be changed?
We've already talked about this, about if you put less importance on winning your division, then you put less importance on division rivalries. And then at that point, why even have divisions if we're going to be worried about who has the best record? And the other thing is a lot of these records aren't even comparable half the time anyways, because teams are playing completely different schedules from each other. So there's certain years where you just got the short end of the stick and you got to play the tough schedule. There's certain years you get the easier schedule. Certain years you got to go through a tough division. Certain years you got to go through an easy division. It's all cyclical. It'll all come back to you.
It all comes back.
I didn't hear anyone in this town complaining about how soft the Twins division was for 13, 14 years.
That's correct.
And how the schedule was completely balanced to play the teams in your own division half of the season. Didn't hear anyone complaining about the scheduling then.
That's exactly right.
And all the free passes you were getting to the playoffs because of the division you were in.
Yeah, the worst division in Major League Baseball for a number of years, maybe even decades. Then there's this one, Tenby, as we get ready to go to break. It says, and this is from the 507. Think about it. There's a very high probability that the Vikings will lose to only 2 teams all season, including the playoffs. Because they've lost 3 games, twice to Detroit, once to the Rams. They played the Rams on Monday night. If they lose to the Rams, that's that would be 4 losses in the season, and they would be to 2 teams. Now, that would have to be, I don't have the information in front of me. That seems like it would have to be a first. Another first that we wouldn't really be pleased with here in Minnesota.
And the other part of this is you could still win and then lose to Detroit, and you're still only losing to the 2 teams.
I never thought of that. That's a very good point as well. Well done. There are people that are still scratching their heads and trying to get their heads wrapped around what happened to Sam Darnold and the Vikings, particularly Sam Darnold, the Vikings in general on Sunday. I played the game, Tenby. It's gonna be more of a X's and O's answer, but I'll have it for you on the other side of the break. So get out a piece of paper, get a notepad, and take some notes, and you can learn a little something about the NFL. We'll do that next. Common Man program right here on the Fan.
Midwest's biggest boat show is back. The Discover Boating Minneapolis Boat Show, in partnership with Progressive Insurance, is headed to the Minneapolis Convention Center January 23rd through the 26th. Head over to our contest page for your shot at a family 4-pack of tickets. That's KFAN.com. Give her a contest to enter.
Tenby, let me ask you a quick question. Is this Peek at the Purple? Let's go with it. Peek at the Purple, brought to you by our friends at Affordable Electric. For all your electrical needs, go to affordable-electric.com. As I've told you before, Affordable Electric is shockingly affordable. Before we do some Viking chit-chat here, Tenby. Washington Commanders, they're in the playoffs, right? 6th seed?
Yes.
What's their record?
I think they're 12-5, aren't they?
And they're playing the 3 seed as who?
The Los Angeles Rams.
No, the Vikings are playing.
I'm sorry, Tampa Bay.
What's Tampa Bay's record?
What did they end up, 10-7?
Oh.
I don't know what they ended up.
Well, then Washington also has to play on the road.
Yeah.
It just happens, folks. It's not a big deal. Matter of fact, I don't mind it. I think it's kind of unique. It's like you say, it puts more importance on winning the division, keeps those rivalries.
Well, like I said, you might be in a tougher division, so your record is worse. It doesn't necessarily mean you're a worse team because your record's worse.
Right.
One team could be in a cakewalk division, your team could be in a hard division, and you have a 2-game difference, but you're really the same team.
Yeah, exactly. Plus, owners aren't willing to give away a playoff game, right? You know, if you've won your division, they don't want to change that. The teams are going, no. Owners are saying, we still put stock in our division. Yeah, we got a 1 in 4 chance of getting a playoff game. That's what we want. So they're never going to give that up because How much do you think one home playoff game means in the pocket? I mean, I know it's a drop in the bucket compared to the kind of money the National Football League generates, but ticket sales alone has got to be several $1 million, and then you put the concessions on top of that, and it's a good chunk of change. One more text message on, and this isn't even PA's turned over text. This is something that was sent to Common. It says, Vikings need to give B-Flow a new giant contract, one so big you won't even consider looking at anything else. Coaching salaries do not count towards a salary cap. Can you please read this on air so the team can be informed of this? Thanks. Team's aware of it. This has been brought up before. If a team really wanted B-Flow, wouldn't they just top the Vikings offer then? And here's the thing for a lot of these guys, they want to be the guy. Did you hear what Ben Johnson said in his presser 2 or 3 weeks ago? Because they were asking him, same thing. He probably could have got a head coaching Lions offensive coordinator. He could have gotten a job last year. He was on the top of most lists, right? And he knew that there'd be other opportunities. I think he decided, we got a really good chance to get to a big game. We were just in the NFC Championship game. Everybody's coming back. I like what I've created here. I want to play this thing out a little bit. I don't want to give up everything I've created to go coach a terrible team in a terrible city with terrible fans in a terrible stadium, which might not have many pieces. I have 3 bad years. I get kicked to the curb, and I'm back to being offensive coordinator now. There'll be plenty of time for Ben Johnson. Matter of fact, his stock has probably even gone up another notch here.
Done it again. Yeah.
He's done it again. And he said, I have a burning desire to be a head coach. B-Flow wants to be a head coach.
They all do.
It doesn't matter how much. You're not going to offer B-Flow more than the head coach makes. We're going to give you $20 million a year if you stay here. They're not going to offer him that kind of money. They're just not going to do it. And at $20 million, would he? Yeah, he'd probably stay for a year or two at $20 million a year because he knows he will also get a head coaching opportunity. But that's just not going to happen. I would be shocked and stunned if the Vikings made him some incredible financial offer to try to get him to stay here. I don't think any teams.
You're also then now setting the precedent of we're going to spend $20 million on our defensive coordinator. And then the next one that comes around that isn't B-Flow worthy, what are they going to be expecting?
Yes, that's exactly right. So I think the way you have to look at it as when your offensive and defensive coordinators take head coaching jobs elsewhere, your team has been very successul for the past few years.
It's a good problem to have.
It is a good problem to have. Alex Anzalone, I think, might have been the biggest problem for the Vikings. He was green dogging. Do you know what green?
Obviously, I know what green dogging is.
Yeah, what is green dogging?
I don't know.
Well, you probably don't because you're a hockey guy. Like, I didn't know what a Spurgeon got slew-footed. I didn't know what slew-footed meant. I had to ask you, what's a saucer pass? There are things in hockey that I just don't understand. What's a 2-line pass? What's icing? What's offsides? What's a poke check? I still don't know what a poke check is. What's a poke check? Because I've heard it all the time. He poke checked. What does that mean? He pokes the puck away as he's checking?
Well, the weird thing is the word check is used a lot in hockey.
Right.
But they're not all necessarily associated with checking. Like there's a forecheck, there's a back check, there's a poke check, and then there's just checking.
What's a poke check?
A poke check is primarily used by defensemen.
Okay.
So let's say you had the puck and you were skating towards me one-on-one. I'm skating backwards, and I'm going straight out with my stick to poke at it, poke the puck off your stick.
So that's what I thought it was, but the check confused me. You're right. I said, well, you're poking at the puck while you're trying to slam him into the stanchion. So there are things in hockey I don't know, because you played hockey. I played football. And I played both sides. I don't know if I've brought this up to you before, but I played both sides of the ball. Fierce pass rushing, rocket Gibraltar run-stopping defensive lineman, precise route running, sure-handed pass-catching tight end.
You were Travis Hunter before Travis Hunter.
The way that rolled off my tongue, it sounds like I've probably said this before, right? Anzalone never gave Sam time to settle in. Never gave him a chance. He green dogged. Here's what green dogging does. Anzalone's sitting back there. When he sees that C.J. Ham or Akers or even Jones is going to sit back for max protection, that's when he makes his move to go in. They disguise it until then, and it caught the Vikings offsides. Here's a statistic you need to know.
What does green dog mean?
Green dog is when you don't give a guy time to get settled in the pocket and waggle out.
Ah.
Plus, did you notice the way Detroit was pinching the outsides?
Yeah.
They were making almost like a circumference around him, so they weren't allowing Sam to move out of the pocket and get to the outside. 80% of Darnold's yards passing this year were when he had more than 2.5 seconds to pass. He didn't have that. Nobody was blitzed more in a game this year. I don't think anywhere in the league, might have been one or two that I'm not aware of, than Sam Darnold got blitzed. The Lions did the old, what did Mike Tice say about blitzing? You live by the dog and you die by the dog. It can back
by the dog, you die by the dog.
It can backfire. It didn't backfire for Detroit.
No.
It just didn't backfire for them last. The Vikings were just not prepared. In both Cam Robinson and who's the other guy on that side? The guard.
Blake Brandel.
They had, if you look at the Pro Football Focus numbers, they had probably the worst games of the year. They picked the worst time to have the worst games of the year. So again, I'm not trying to say that Sam doesn't have something to do with this, but it doesn't seem like the Vikings had any answers for the Lions' heavy blitz packages or their green dogging. Usually with a linebacker tend to be, it's basically just a blitz. When he saw Jones or Akers or C.J. Ham to stay in to pass protect, he blitzed from depth. Did I say death? It was death for like, is he
from depth?
From depth is what he did. That, along with the defensive line stunts, made it difficult for the Vikings in six-man protections. It flustered Darnold, and it made him indecisive. It adds an extra man to the play rush late in the play, so you can't slide your protection pre-snap. You have to do it quickly. The Vikings had no answer. I don't think they expected it because it's considered suicide to try to cover the Viking wide receivers one-on-one, right? You can't cover Addison one-on-one. You can't cover Jets one-on-one. You can't do that with these guys. The Lions did it. They did it to great success. And so, again, Sam made some overthrows, but that was because of the pressure packages the Lions put together.
Don't you just throw a screen pass every once in a while when they're constantly doing that?
They wanted. Maybe they should have. Maybe that's the adjustment they should have made instead of just keeping a guy back for max protection. I would expect to see a lot of green dogging out of the LA Rams this coming Sunday. We'll have to see how that goes.
Well, it sounds like they don't play as much man-to-man as Detroit, so it'd be a little bit out of their character to play that deep style.
That's correct. Though we'll see. Maybe they change their stripes.
Yeah, it's a copycat league.
It's a copycat league. We'll break, and as we go into the break, Tennebee's got some wild stuff for us.
Yeah, this is Wild Today brought to you by Jim Beam, the official bourbon of the Minnesota Wild. The Wild host the St. Louis Blues tonight at XL Energy Center. Zach Bogosian, Freddie Gaudreau, and Matt Zuccarello all skated this morning, a sign that they'll be in the lineup tonight. Jake Middleton was also on the ice as well. He's looking for his return since suffering an upper body injury. Head coach John Hines said yesterday that Middleton's return was imminent. Philip Gustafson will get the start in net. The Blues have won 4 of their past 6. They are 10-6-3 since Jim Montgomery took over as head coach. Wild versus Blues. First puck drops at 7 o'clock tonight at the X, and you'll hear that game right here on The Fan. That was Wild Today, brought to you by Jim Beam, a crowd pleaser since 1795.
Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Little Jackie Paper loved that rascal Puff and brought him strings and sealing wax and other fancy stuff. Oh, Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu. Puff the magic dragon lived by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land called Honolulu.
In my humble opinion, one of the 10 greatest songs ever wrote, sang, sung. The co-writer of that song, Peter Yarrow, best known as 1/3 of Peter, Paul, and Mary, the folk music trio that transfixed Tennessee. It's not an exaggeration to say that millions has died at the age of 86. He co-wrote the group's Puff the Magic Dragon, their most enduring song. During an incredible run of his success spanning the 1960s, Yarrow, Noel Paul Stookie, and Mary Travers released 6 Billboard Top 10 singles, 2 #1 albums, and they also won 5 Grammy Awards. They also brought early exposure to Bob Dylan by turning 2 of his songs, Don't Think Twice It's All Right and Blowin' in the Wind, into Billboard Top 10 hits. The song we just played, Puff the Magic Dragon, tells the tale of Jackie Paper, a young boy who embarks on countless adventures with his make-believe dragon friend until he outgrows such childhood fantasies, leaving a sobbing, heartbroken Puff behind. As Yarrow explains in the song Tennessee, a dragon lives forever, but not so little boys. Of course, you know there's always different interpretations, and this is legendary. Some insisted they heard drug references in the song, a contention at the heart of the famous scene in the film Meet the Parents, when Ben Stiller angers his girlfriend's tightly wound father, Robert De Niro, by saying Puff refers to marijuana smoke. Yarrow maintained it reflected the loss of childhood innocence and nothing more. See, and I thought it was a drug reference too, because a little Jackie Paper, and I thought he gave up rolling joints and he switched to like a bong or a pipe or something like that. Sorry. That really wasn't very funny. That song, the reason it has so much meaning, Baby Brother Peter still does not like to hear it because of the sad nature of it. Well, and that was one of the songs I would sing to him as I would put him to sleep. When I used to glide in the glider, when I'd rock my boys to sleep, I would never sing lullabies. I would always sing songs that I grew up with. But I mean, it's not like I did Go Ask Alice. You know, I didn't sing White Rabbit to him, you know. One pill makes you larger and the other makes you... I would sing songs like John Denver's Take Me Home, Country Road, and Puff the Magic Dragon, really happy songs, right? And the one...
For me, I wasn't singing nothing but a G thing to my kids.
Oh, you don't sing that as you're putting them to sleep.
No.
And I've recanted this tale before. Every time I'd sit down with Baby Brother Peter, I'd say, what do you want to hear first? And he'd go, Obla-dee, Obla-da. He liked Obla-dee, Obla-da. Yeah. And I would always get to Puff the Magic Dragon. But it's a very sad song. It's about a boy that just outgrows little boy stuff and he moves on. Puff's buddy's gone. Sort of like Tennessee, the day you leave here, I'm going to go, where did you go? And
you're not going to throw a party?
And the tears will fall like scales, is what it will do, is what will happen to me. So I just wanted to mention that the Peter Yarrow is...
Those three can harmonize.
Oh, yeah. They were really
pretty good.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And again, does it...
Because they do If I Had a Hammer, too, right?
Yes, they did.
Yeah.
And look, does it still hold up today? Does it age? Well, if you like folk music, it does. I just don't think folk music is on the tip of the tongue of most people. They want to hear more of, what did you just call your song that you don't sing to your kids?
Nothing but a G thing?
Yeah, I think they'd rather hear that than Puff the Magic Dragon. Nothing but a G thing. They'd rather hear than Puff the Magic Dragon or If I Had a Hammer. So, and it's all good.
But now they want to hear, they not like us. They not like us.
They not like us. That's exactly what they say. Sam Darnold, as I mentioned, Tennessee has taken a lot of, matter of fact, from people suggesting that we might want to sign him, at least franchise tag him, right? Get him for another year before McCarthy's ready. And look, I was one of those making the argument that, you know me, Tim, I always like to counter an argument. I should have been in debate. I could have been debating Manning. What
about Peyton Manning?
And Peyton Manning. I can make an argument for, at the end of the season, regardless of what Sam does, he could lead us to a big game world championship and say, Sam, we appreciate your patronage. We appreciate everything you've done for the franchise. Don't let the door hit you on the way back, way out. Good luck to you the rest of your career. Can also see where you say, he played like a franchise quarterback. We've been looking for a franchise quarterback. Well, let's just sign him, and the McCarthy character, we might be able to trade him. I think you were talking about this, or maybe I read it somewhere, that there are those that think because the quarterback draft seems to be a little thin this year, that if McCarthy was coming out this year, he might be the first quarterback taken and maybe the first player overall, correct?
Yeah.
So there would be teams might not be willing to give up a couple of number ones for that, but you could probably get a first-round pick and maybe a second and another player or something. So you can make arguments, I think, for either one of those scenarios. Being said, everybody can have a lemon of a game, right, Tenneby?
Yeah.
How about this? Got numbers for you here. Where did the numbers go? Ranking every Patrick Mahomes playoff game from worst to best.
Sounds like a lot of games.
Yeah. Here's one. 2021 AFC Championship game. They lost to Cincinnati 27-24. It's pretty clear which game would land at the bottom of this list. In the 2021 Conference Championship, the Chiefs started out strong enough by jumping to a 21-3 lead. Mahomes and the offense lost their mojo, culminating in a botched final play before halftime. With 5 seconds left, no timeouts, and sitting on Cincy's one, they completed a pass to Hill, who got tackled inbounds, and the Chiefs failed to get any points. 21 championship game stands out as a rare blemish to Mahomes' otherwise stellar postseason record. It's the only playoff loss where he shouldered most of the blame. There are numbers to go with it. They are too many to get into right now. How about Josh Allen? Oh, by the way, did they kick Pat Mahomes to the curb after that performance? I don't think they did. How about Josh Allen? This is from this year. Bills lose 23-20 to the Texans. Allen finished the game 9 of 30 for 131 yards and one score. He set the wrong kind of history for the lowest completion percentage, 30%, off of 30 pass attempts in the last 30 years. Boy, Josh, why don't you leave and don't let the door hit you on the way back? Did they give up on Josh Allen, Tenneby? Well, did they?
A little more equity in these guys.
You think so?
Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I guess. I mean, details. How about Lamar Jackson? Lamar Jackson's worst statistical performance of the 2024 season was in a loss. This is just this past year.
Yeah. In a year, he's considered to be an MVP candidate.
Completed 16 of 33 for 207, one tutty, and one interception. Jackson's performance in the playoffs has also been notable, with a completion rate of 27% when pressured, which is the worst in the league since 2018. His off-target rate when pressured has increased from 15% in the regular season to 32% in the playoffs. And as you just said, considered to be an MVP candidate. Why are people so quick to kick people to the curb? Now, you're right. It's a bit of a strained analogy when you're comparing Sam Darnold with three of the best quarterbacks of our generation, or certainly the last decade, right? I mean, these guys can flat out, they can spin it, right? And they've had a lot of success, particularly in Mahomes. 3 big games. Josh hasn't been to one, but their kryptonite has been pretty much Pat Mahomes in Kansas City. And Lamar's, he's not gotten to a big game yet, has he?
They have not performed well in the playoffs.
Yeah, they don't perform well in the playoffs. So my point is one game. I know Sue Ann wrote a piece about O'Connell's biggest challenge this week is to get Sam well again. And while I understand the premise of it, I just don't know if all of a sudden, I think that goes back to this quarterback whispering thing that all they need to do is get O'Connell to set Sam's feet in his eyes correctly again, and all will be right with the world. Because we've come to believe that the best head coach, at least right now in pro football, and the best quarterback coach-er-upper is Kevin O'Connell, and there's just no argument. People just seem to think, well, that's just the way it is. And it's like, again, I'm still not convinced of that, because if that's the truth, what the hell happened on Sunday? And why didn't they make adjustments at halftime? Why didn't they do something differently? I think sometimes it's just the coach can only do so much. And the other teams counter, they were green dogging. And if you saw and it was brought up by Collinsworth in the game, and as much as Collinsworth annoys me, I think he was spot on. If you notice what Detroit was doing on the pass rush, they were almost putting like a circumference around him, right? They were making sure he couldn't get outside the corners. They were just trying to contain him more than anything and not let him roll out of the pocket when they would blitz. And then you have your blitzing play. So if you've got your lineman on the outside blocking so he can't move outside, and you got guys coming up the middle, it's going to create a lot of pressure and the ball that you got to get rid of really quickly. So I don't know. Is there a solution to that? There better be, because the Rams might try to duplicate that same thing. And Darnold was off. There's no doubt.
I still think if Darnold hit some of those passes in the first half, Detroit might not be doing that same aggressive defense the entire game.
That's correct. But I think it's all, and maybe I'm, Tennessee, maybe it is all on Darnold. Maybe that is the simple solution we're looking for. Because everyone's looking, we talked about it earlier. Everybody's looking for one simple reason is that, hey, we can fix it just like that. All we got to do is do this. I don't know if it's that simple.
I still think that maybe when they are green dogging Darnold the way they were and containing him in the pocket, that there are some solutions. I already mentioned doing the screen pass. You can literally do designed rollouts where you're moving where the pocket's going, right? And forcing them to change the way they're rushing a little bit. I thought, if there was an Achilles heel for KOC in that game, he could have done a little bit more of that.
I think you're probably right. Here's a text message that came in. It says, O'Connell thinks he's smarter than he really is. I don't know. I don't know. I can't get in his head. I think sometimes these coaches and players do begin to read the press clippings and do begin to think, man, maybe I am really good at what I do. And there's nothing wrong with feeling confident about yourself. He might feel like, I can coach up any quarterback in the league. I'm really good at it. And that's always a good mindset to have. And I guess if you want to look at what Darnold did in his every other stop and what he did here, it's night and day, and I get that.
Well, that is the concern about the Rams game is I do think KOC has a little bit of that to him. I think he's very good.
Yep.
But sometimes the ego can go a little too far, and he calls things just to try to prove everyone how great of a play caller he is. And specifically against Sean McVay, who's like his mentor, the guy he worked for. I felt like the first time they played him, they tried to do a little bit too much trickeration in that game, where he's trying to do I'm going to pull a fast one on the genius that is Sean McVay.
Yes.
Instead of just taking what the defense gives you and let's just play.
Also, it's been pointed out by a number of other people, not just me. The offensive line did not play very well. We talked about how the left side of the line was not good. Does that alleviate Darnold any blame from those overthrows? No. But you can get a bit jittery in the pocket, and he's never been in a situation like that. Right? People want to say choked. Lights were too bright. Maybe they were. First time, right? Tennessee, do you remember the first time that you've had an experience that's not unlike that of a PGA golfer? You shot a 70, what was it again?
74.
Had you broken 80 before then?
That's the only time to this day I've broken 80.
Okay.
Yeah.
As you're going down the stretch, did you have some nerves? Were you thinking about, man, I can't believe how well I'm playing? Or were you just calm, cool, and collected throughout?
From the get-go that day, I was in a very good mental state.
Okay.
And obviously, you get some lucky shots.
Sure.
I already explained to you the par 3.
Right.
Where I basically hit a ground ball over the creek and it somehow ends up on the green.
Right.
And I hit a birdie putt on just an awful tee shot.
And you pumped your fist.
Probably.
Yeah.
I also... I remember going to 18, I knew I was breaking 80. I wasn't thinking, hey, I got to shoot a 74 here.
Right.
But I was so comfortable away from 80 where I wasn't worried about.
Correct.
I wasn't feeling pressure on it. So I didn't in that situation. Of course, I've had others where I've flirted with breaking 80 multiple other times. And I still remember the first time at North Oaks when I did it. And I think I needed to basically shoot one over the last 3 to break 80. And
couldn't do it.
It went the wrong way.
Well, and I don't like to talk about myself or use myself as an example or analogy. You know that. I'm kind of, I like to just talk about what's going on around me. But the first time I ever broke 90 was at Fox Hollow. I shot an 89. First time I broke 80, I shot a 79 at the old Valley View, which was up in Jordan, but it's now closed, right? And it took a long time to break 80. And there were times I was going down the stretch and it got to me. The pressure, hang on to the club a little, squeeze it a little tighter, block a shot here, do a shot there. Those things do happen. And then I remember the first time I shot even par better, I shot a 69 at Creeks Bend. And I was 3 over at the turn, made another birdie, got to 4 under. And I'm now like, I'm unaware of anything going around me. I can't believe this is happening, right? I've never played like that. My best round at that point was a 76. I make a bogey to go back to 3 with like 5 holes to go. And I go, don't you let this get away. Don't go bogey, double, whatever, and then shoot 72, 73, 4, 5, 6. I'm still a nice score, but this is my first really good chance to break it. I brought it home. I was able to bring it home. Sam couldn't bring it home on Sunday night. Doesn't mean he can't bring it home this coming Monday night, right? He might, now that he's experienced and said, all right, that didn't go well. I was a little jacked up. I was a little tight. I was squeezing the football a little bit harder, and we don't change the pressure in the footballs like Tom Brady does. We play it straight up. Maybe this time, it happened once. I ain't going to let it happen again. I don't know.
Well, I will say, I bet you the crowd is a lot more ruckus in Detroit than it's going to be in Los Angeles on Monday, even for a playoff game.
I agree with you there because the Los Angeles
be a little tamer.
Don't care as much. I could be wrong. It could be the same thing. Darnold could look awful again. I think Sam's going to have a bounce back game. Am I guaranteeing a Vikings victory? No. But Tenneby, keep this in mind. Keep this in mind. If they beat the Vikings, the Lions return to Detroit. And what's probably the most difficult thing to do in a season?
Beat a team 3 times.
That is correct. Some breaking news. Sam Darnold's been benched and they're going to start Mullins.
Some breaking Detroit Lions news.
Oh.
Dan Campbell, your head coach, had his presser today.
Uh-oh.
He said he expects running back David Montgomery to be ready for the division round.
Oh my gosh. Sonic and Knuckles reunited and it feels so good. That's just what they need because their running game really hasn't been very good lately. I mean, this past Sunday we really struggled. They really need some help.
If you're a Vikings fan, you're almost like, please play David Montgomery. Because the first time we played them, he started the game. I think he fumbled early in that game, and then he got hurt, and that's when Gibbs just took over. We want him back, so at least they give him the ball, 40, 50% of the time.
I said this before, Tenneby. When the injury happened, I think it was in the Bears game. I don't remember which game he got hurt. Doctor said surgery. He said, I want a second opinion. Doctor said surgery. He said, I want a third opinion. Third guy said, oh, no, you're fine. Just take a couple of weeks off.
Throw some Robitussin on it.
Eat some dirt, rub a little Robitussin on it. He's got to do what he's got to do. And look, as a Lions fan, I'm delighted to have him back in the lineup. I just hope it's not one of those things where he's really taking a chance where it's like, like even Anzalone even said, he goes, they said he should be ready to play in 6 to 8 weeks. It was week 7 on Sunday. And he had said before, maybe he was just playing coy in the news conference earlier in the week before the game with the Vikings. He said, I don't know, it's a collaborative decision. He said, we've got to decide, is there a chance that if I re-injure it, could it be worse and get a real setback? He decided to play, and it paid dividends for Detroit because he was probably the most important defensive player on the team for the Lions this past Sunday. We'll pause. We'll come back. The legendary one, Mark Rosen. He will join us next. Common Man program on the Fan.